I'm going to be sharing some ink layering techniques that are so easy and simple to do, and I use them to create beautiful monochromatic backgrounds. Hey everyone, it's Joy here, and welcome to my channel. Here's some of the products that I am going to be using. This is Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous, a combo of stamps and stencils. I'm going to be using the stencils. This is 49 and Market Charcoal Rub-On Transfers. We're going to be using that for our cards today. And then I am going to be using SBC's, scrapbook.com's, Nested Stitched Labels dies. Let's start with our background. So first technique of layering some ink, use a brayer. Just rub it onto your ink pad and then rub that onto your cardstock. I am using a mixed media cardstock, white of course, and I started with Tattered Rose. I am doing 3 different monochromatic backgrounds, but you could do this with any colors and you can layer them on top of each other. So you definitely using a brayer is fun and easy. It gives the background a really cool texture. And I'm not trying to be perfect. I am going to go in different directions and I'm just going to kind of let the ink be what it is. Okay, for the second technique, we're going to do a little bit of ink smushing. Now, I'm using a different color, but it still is in this kind of orange color family. So I'm using dried Marigold. I have a piece of acetate. I'm going to smush my ink on and then spritz it with a little bit of water. I'm just using my finger to kind of move that ink around, and I'm going to smush this on the background. So this is a little bit darker than the Tattered Rose that I did on that background. But again, it still is in the same color family, so you're just getting this nice monochromatic look. So I added more water on that, so you could see that I have smoother, bigger areas that have the color. Now on this one, I'm not going to add as much water and you'll kind of see, and the same with the third one, I'm going to add even less water and you'll kind of see what that is going to look like. This is worn lipstick on top of Saltwater Taffy. I'm going to clean off my acetate between each round and then set that aside. Then this is going to be Speckled Egg. Actually, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to add a little bit more. The next one will be Speckled Egg on top of Salvaged Patina, because I use the Salvaged Patina to use the brayer for that background. Okay, let's do this last one, making sure I just get all of that ink off my piece of acetate. And I like the acetate because I can kind of see where I'm putting the ink, which is fantastic for me because I kind of like to know where it's going. So again, this is Speckled Egg on top of Salvaged Patina. This has less water, and so you can see that you have more definition in those lines. All right, for this next technique, we are just going to stencil on top. I am not going to cover the whole background. I am just going to add some little areas of stenciling. I do not want to cover up those other ways that we added ink, because again, this is ink layering. You want to be able to see some of the other ways that you did it. So I want to see some of that texture from the brayer. I want to see some of that texture from the ink smushing. And then now I want to bring in this stencil. So again, I'm just going to do it in a few areas, and I'm going to go a little bit lighter in some areas and darker in some areas as I'm ink blending through the stencil. I'm using dried Marigold because this is the darker of the Tattered Rose and dried Marigold combination. And I'm just going to place it in a few areas. I love this stencil. It's so pretty. I use this on one of my other cards, but look at how gorgeous that is. It's that bottom part is blending into some of the areas of the ink smushing. So it's almost like it transforms into the stenciling or transforms into that ink blending area. And I think that that looks really, really cool. So you can kind of decide how this background is going to look. So you can see I stenciled over some of that darker area again where I did the ink smushing. And remember, this was the background that I added more water with the ink smushing, and so it gave it more of a flowy look, where the other ones I had a little less water and it gave it more of a defined look as far as the ink goes. So that one is done. Let's go to our next one. I'm just going to clean off the stencil. And then I can bring in my next background. And you guys definitely want to hang on because I've got some beautiful those 49 and Market charcoal rub-on transfers because we're going to be making some sympathy cards. And I just thought having a colorful background, but then having these charcoal beautiful florals and butterflies are so fun. And I can't wait to show you what I did with the butterflies. Super fun, easy, cool technique. Okay, I am using the Worn lipstick. This is the darker color. Look at how pretty that is. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I am just going to find some areas where I want it to go. I'm not going to use the flowers, just this little repeating pattern here. I think this is trefoil. Someone told me on my last video because I couldn't remember what it was called, and then I think someone else said arabesque. So, but I remember hearing trefoil before. But it definitely has like a Moroccan feel to me, and I love it. Look at how pretty that is. Oh, it's so stunning. And if you don't, when you're ink blending through the stencil, I have some areas that are dark, but I let the edges kind of fade out lighter, so then it really looks like it's just blending into the other part of the ink that's already on that background. And I think that's part of what makes it so pretty. Okay, now I am using Speckled Egg. This combination again was the Salvaged Patina and Speckled Egg. So let me come in and do that. And I'm just gonna line it up somewhere. It doesn't have to be specific. I did not want the backgrounds to be the same as far as where the stenciling was, so I tried to do it differently for all three of these backgrounds. And I have to say, you know, no one wants to make sympathy cards. They're, you know, it's a bummer that you kind of have to, but I definitely need some in my stash, and so it was good to make it, and I just feel like this was a good card design for that. But obviously you could turn this into anything, and it doesn't have to be monochromatic. Just get some colors that blend nicely together, so when you are ink smushing or stenciling, you're going to get a nice color blend with your colors that you're using. And then here is a last simple way to layer some ink. Do some splatter. I'm just going to add some splatter with that same darker color, so dried Marigold, and I'm just going to add it in some of the areas. It adds just a little something extra. You get a little bit more of a concentrated color than the ink smushing or the ink blending. Even with the brayer, you're going to get a little bit more of a concentrated color by doing this, as long as you don't add too much water. Here is that gorgeous this is Worn lipstick, I believe. So pretty. And then let's do the last one. The last one I'm actually going to splatter it with Salvaged Patina. So I'm going to get that on that background. And then you definitely want to dry these. I just hit these with my heat tool to let them dry. Okay, let's look at these gorgeous rub-on transfers really quick. I just wanted to show you because the next step I'm going to speed up a little bit, but you have some sentiments and just some fun designs and images that I think are so fun to add as the little extras on your backgrounds. And then you've got these gorgeous florals and beautiful butterflies. So we're going to use florals and butterflies for the project. Each card's going to have 2 butterflies, and then the background is going to have some gorgeous florals. But aren't these just absolutely stunning? When I saw these, I thought, this is exactly what I need to make. Okay, so I'm going to start off a little bit slow, and then I'm going to speed everything up. So I trimmed out what I wanted to use. I pulled off the backing of the paper and placing it down, and then I'm running this through my die cut machine, because running it through is going to get everything nice and adhered. I would say, you know, still pull back your release paper gently just to make sure everything is sticking down. But look at how perfect that is. So I'm going to do that for all 3 of these cards, putting my little images down. Just, you know, I didn't really have a plan. It was just like, what am I going to lay out? And we're going to go from there. I was going to start to rub this by hand, but I was like, no, just run it through. Just run it through the die cut machine. There is no reason not to, although your arm could get tired from cranking that sucker. So if you had a better plan than me, you wouldn't have to crank it so many times. Let's get these gorgeous leaves down here at the bottom. And then we can peel that back. And if any of your rub-on transfer images are hanging off the edge, just wrap it around the side of your card and then just kind of rub it, you know, not hard, but give it a good burnish with your finger, and it is totally fine and it's going to stay. Okay, so this card, I'm going to add one more little piece. I loved this kind of striped piece here. So I'm going to use that on all 3 cards. So I'm just going to trim it down and just do a little piece on each one of the cards. And this I am just going to burnish with my Pick Pro tool. And I'm not sure why I decided to, maybe to show you guys that you could also do it this way. But those bigger images, I would just run it through my die cut machine. Okay, so now I'm going to speed this up so that way I can show you the next 2 cards and it doesn't take forever and a day. But look at that big, beautiful flower. I love that. Those leaves are gorgeous. I just think these images are so stunning. And I don't mind that they overlap a little. You know, I kind of like that look where everything is just kind of layered, kind of collaged together. Let me add a few more things. I definitely want to get something that has a little bit of words. I think I did on each card like 2 little things that had words on it. So that was kind of similar. I used that little stripe thing the same, but definitely placement is not the same on anything. It was just kind of where I felt like it needed to go. And so I'm going to lay that here. And if you thought ahead more than I did, because I just, you know, I had an idea in my mind and then I just was kind of playing, like trying to figure it out as I went. But you could lay down quite a few of these and run them through at the same time. So you would not have to do it one at a time the way I'm doing it. Just make sure that if you do multiples at a time that you're not overlapping any of the plastic on top of the other plastic. Otherwise that part's not going to rub off onto your card. Let's do our 3rd one here. I'm going to get this leaf. I do trim this down a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit off and then I can add it later, which is what's really awesome. But I loved these leaves. I just thought it was so pretty and I wanted to get that on there. Look at how gorgeous that is. And I just think this charcoal color look on any background is going to be stunning. It didn't matter if you did a rainbow background or not, you know, monochromatic or completely colorful. I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. So we got just a few more things to go on here. And again, you know, if you have hangover, just rub that behind. No big deal. I had that little extra leaf. I am just going to use my tool. That was a little bit faster. And then let's add our little stripe here, of course, because I have that on my other 2 cards. And then I also want to add some words. And then we are going to do some fun things with the butterflies. Super simple, but really beautiful. And it just makes them look different. So, you know, we have these rub-ons on our beautiful backgrounds, but now, but then we're going to put the butterflies. I wanted to call them strawberries. Isn't that funny? They're not strawberries, butterflies. Then we're going to put those on some vellum, which I think is going to be so, so pretty. Before we do that, let me just distress these edges. I'm just using my scissors and roughing up the edges because I want to see that white cardstock. Okay. Like I said, I had 6 butterflies, a large and a small, and for each card. And so I'm going to place this on a piece of vellum, and then I'm going to run this through my die cut machine, and then I can use my scissors to trim these out. So what I love about this is that you are not going to lose that softness about these charcoal rub-ons with the butterflies because you're putting them on vellum. So the parts that are see-through are still going to be see-through, but you know, kind of frosted. I love that. I think that this turned out so beautiful. They're so delicate, and it's not going to be this harsh white cardstock behind the butterflies. Okay, now in my MISTI, I have die cut from the Nested Stitches labels, 3 labels on vellum. I am prepping them with an anti-static powder tool. I'm using white embossing powder for my sentiments, and I'm going to heat that up until it's melted. So our sentiment will be on this gorgeous vellum. I love to heat emboss on vellum. I have forgotten about it. It's one of those techniques I just totally forgot about and then remembered. And I'm like, yeah, I need to do that. And I am using the sentiments from Honeybee Stamps Inside Sentiments Comfort. So the sentiment says, I am praying for you, for your peace and comfort. Sometimes there are just no words. And then the other one is wrapping you in love. So I love a Misty for this. There's my little static tool so we don't get little pieces of embossing powder where you don't want it. I'm inking it up with clear embossing ink, so I'm using Versamark for my ink. And I'm just centering it in those beautiful label dies, and I love that they have the stitching around the edges. It's just such a beautiful detail, which just adds to this card design. So making sure that is nice and centered. I apologize that my head is in the way. And then I'm going to ink this up, and I like to ink it up 2 or 3 times to make sure I get a really good crisp stamped image. And then as long as your heat tool is nice and hot, it really is not going to warp that much. It might warp a tiny, tiny, tiny bit, but not much. So make sure that your heat gun is on as you're stamping so it gets super hot. So I'm going to heat that up, and then I'm going to heat up my third one here. Just making sure I don't have any little speckled pieces. Okay, let's put these cards together. I have them adhered to a white A2 size card base. These were trimmed down already, slightly smaller than an A2 sized. And I'm going to add tiny little dots of glue behind some of the letters of the embossed sentiment. So just a little bit of glue. I can't see it now that I have it down on my cards. It does dry clear, but through vellum you can see a lot of things. So make sure it's tiny little dots and just go behind some of your letters. And I'm going to do that for all 3 cards, but I am going to place these in different areas. So they're only going to be adhered behind the sentiments. So I'm going to place that one down here, and then we have our other one. And again, I just did not want to hide the background. So just like the butterflies, I almost called them strawberries again. I don't even know what the deal is. But just like the butterflies, you have this nice soft vellum, so we're not hiding anything. You don't have this harsh white or whatever color background for the sentiment. It's very soft, very pretty, and that's what I really love also about this card design. I'm bending up my butterfly wings. I'm going to give each card 1 large butterfly and 1 small butterfly. One of the butterflies is like you have the side view, so I did bend it where its little body was, so it totally works. And it's going to go on that pink card. So then I can add a little bit of glue at the base of the body, the part that's going to be touching the background. And then once the glue is dry, then you can kind of bend up the wings a little bit more depending on how you want it to go. But then it's going to go and slide nice and flat into a card. And then let's get this guy going. Some of them are going to overlap that nested stitched label. And then some of the butterflies will not. And then we can take a look at these up close here in just a second. And let me know what you think about these cards, what you think about the monochromatic look. And then, of course, the gorgeous rub-ons. But isn't that beautiful? I love these cards. I just think they turned out so nice. I love the backgrounds. I love these charcoal rub-ons. And I think these are perfect sympathy cards. Let's take our final look at this one here. So beautiful. Okay guys, thanks so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I hope you guys have a really, really amazing day, and I'll be back soon with another video.